I've kind of wondered if because the Ravens have shot themselves in the foot so early in these Buffalo games, if Sean McDermott and the Bills can like realize that they don't need to be Superman, that they can just be like, you know what? Maybe we can play a little bit more cautious and just let the Ravens shoot themselves in the foot.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Buffalo Plus. Mike Catalana with you today. We've got something special for you because we're getting ready for Bills and Ravens coming up on Sunday night. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it all the time. So I get an opportunity today to do our What They're Saying in a series, and we're doing it with the Baltimore Ravens. SARAH Ellison joins us. She's on the Ravens Vault podcast along with Bobby Trossett. SARAH, welcome to Buffalo Plus.
I appreciate you having on. This should be fun, and I look forward to talking to you about this Sunday. It's a big one for both sides.
Yeah, why not, right? I mean, when you look at all the games this week, it's Bills and Ravens, right? I mean, you are talking about two teams that are in everybody's list to get to the Super Bowl. Can they do it? Can these teams finally get by? But I want to ask you, from a Ravens perspective, coming into this one, the season ended in this building at Highmark Stadium last year in a tough one, the way it ended for Baltimore. I've heard some of the players talk about get that taste out of our mouth, get back what we didn't get. I mean, obviously, a win isn't going to get you to the AFC Championship. It's just the first game of the year. But is it a revenge game, do you think, for the Ravens?
Yeah, I think, like you said, revenge is probably a little too strong because revenge couldn't fully be met unless it happened in the playoffs. But I definitely think it's like you said, they want that monkey off their back. They want to, I think they want to just like show that they weren't themselves, right? And I think that's been, and it's not just against Buffalo. It's just a recurring issue where the Ravens don't look like themselves in some of these playoff losses. And so in their view, and you know, it's not to take anything away from the Bills, but maybe it sounds that way, I would get it, but it's just like they want to feel like if they're going to lose, they want to feel like they put out their best effort. And so obviously with, Lamar Jackson throwing that interception, he and his wide receiver were not on the same page. He's trying to like make a play and the ball slips out of his hand and has that fumble. Mark Andrews has a fumble. He's like running horizontal instead of up the field and gets the ball knocked out. And then there's the infamous 2-point conversion drop. And so it's like, it's tough to take a loss when you feel like, I mean, you just think about it. Lamar Jackson only had 4 interceptions the entire season. And all of a sudden he has 2 turnovers in the first half. And sometimes these things just come in clusters. And so I think there's part like, let us show the NFL world and even ourselves that we are capable of beating Buffalo. And then, but also not get too high or too low off of it, knowing it's a long season and they still need to do something in the playoffs.
Yeah, both of these teams have the shared misery of losing to the Chiefs. Everybody knows that, right? The Chiefs find a way against the Ravens, have found a way multiple times against the Bills. And as much respect as I think the Bills as an organization have for the Ravens, quite honestly, it always starts with the Chiefs because they've ended their season multiple times. For the Ravens, now they've had that opportunity against the Chiefs, a couple of opportunities against the Bills. Where do you think the Bills stack up with them? Like in terms of biggest picture? Because in Buffalo, obviously they know who the Ravens are and they've had to battle them, but it does start with Kansas City. For the Ravens, is it both? Are they equal, or are the Chiefs maybe still that team, even though they lost twice to the Bills?
I would say Chiefs are, for the Ravens, are the bigger hill to climb, mostly because the Ravens also have fallen short to them in the regular season. Whereas like in the regular season, the Ravens have beaten the Bills. And obviously last year, was it week three that these two teams met and the Ravens won convincingly. And maybe it was, who knows, maybe it could have been a million things on Buffalo's end still getting to know the team and transitioning and all that kind of stuff. But I think that the Ravens have been like, see what happens when we do put our best effort on the table. Like we can win. And then we won convincingly. Sure, it was in the regular season, but the Ravens have the regular season woes against the Chiefs at that same time. It's not just the postseason. So, and I'm sure it's the same for Buffalo, right? You guys probably put Kansas City and then underneath is more us. Cause you guys, The Buffalo Bills have beaten the Ravens twice in the postseason. This wasn't the first one. And sure, Lamar Jackson had a concussion in that game and wasn't able, but the game was already in Buffalo's control. So, yeah, I'd say they put Kansas City first. But again, more than anything, and this isn't just sometimes it sounds like coach speak or player speak, but I really do think that in the Ravens' minds, it's less to do with Kansas City. It's less to do with Buffalo. It's more about ourselves. Again, because I have a hard time believing if the Ravens played like they normally do in the regular season in the postseason, because they've beaten in December tough playoff teams when their seeding and their life is on the line. They did it in 2023 when they had to play. I remember San Francisco, who was a playoff team that year, and then on Christmas they beat them. It was a huge game. The Ravens need to go on a little run. So they've won huge games in prime time that they absolutely needed to have. And so they know they can do it. So again, it's in their minds, I don't think I think Kansas City and Buffalo, it's less about them. It'd be more about them if the Ravens put on their best effort and they still beat them. But that hasn't been the case. It's like, just let us see what this could be if we played up to our potential.
Speaking of best efforts, when you look back at the meetings where both Lamar and Josh have played, it's funny how they started their careers both coming off the bench in that blowout by the Ravens way back. And then, of course, eventually both became the full-time starters. But if you look at it, the game Lamar had in regular season last year, he was really good. Obviously, Derrick Henry was really good. And they ended up blowing out the Bills for the most part. But otherwise, like Lamar was okay in that game in the rain in Baltimore. The Bills came back late, but it was a low-scoring game. Josh Allen has not put up numbers at all against the Ravens, even in the win last year. Obviously made some plays, but not big numbers. When they beat him in the playoffs back in 21, in January of 21, Josh Allen didn't have a big game. It's almost as if with these two teams, I think they're the two best quarterbacks in the NFL going head to head in this game, yet neither one has really dominated. What do you think comes from that in terms of, especially in the playoff matchups, where it just becomes maybe more of an all-around game or a defensive game between these two teams?
I've kind of wondered if, because the Ravens have shot themselves in the foot so early in these Buffalo games, if Sean McDermott and the Bills can like realize that they don't need to be Superman, that they can just be like, you know what? Maybe we can play a little bit more cautious and just let the Ravens shoot themselves in the foot. You know what I mean? Like when you have two early first half turnovers, then it's like you don't need to, like Josh Allen doesn't need to become Superman. You don't need to like take unnecessary risks. It's just like, okay, well, the Ravens are self-imploding, so let's just watch them do it. That's kind of what I've wondered, but you probably would know better than me. But that's kind of how I viewed it, because it's not like in the AFC Championship game when the Ravens lost to the Kansas City 2 years ago, like I didn't feel like, I mean, Kansas City had two opening drives that were really good, but then from then on out, they kind of like took their foot off the pedal because the Ravens didn't even look like themselves. And that was more from a coaching point of view. Like they just forgot that they could run and like didn't call any rushing plays. And so like that's kind of the trend I've seen beyond Buffalo. It's just that when the Ravens are shooting themselves in the foot, the other team is like, okay, let's just watch them do it. And we don't have to play hero ball, and we'll just play a safe, easy game. Unless the Ravens somehow get it back together, then maybe we'll have to put our foot back on the pedal.
Yeah. Let's talk about these two quarterbacks a little bit more. You know, it's so easy to, and I won't say even nitpick, because, right, you got to do it in the playoffs. And while Josh Allen has probably had better games than Lamar in the playoffs, both have fallen short of where they want to go. But sometimes, I've been covering this team since back in the Jim Kelly days, right? And I've seen them have the great quarterback in the Hall of Fame, a lot of guys that, yeah, we could pay admission to go to the Hall of Fame. And now you got Josh Allen. And it's kind of wild, Sarah. Sometimes I think to myself, even after all these years, it is a pleasure to watch that man play football. And you almost become a fan watching Allen. It's got to be the same with Lamar. I mean, some of the things he does, the two of them do, both with their legs and their arm and their leadership, are impressive. When you think of Lamar, from where he started as this great athlete to where he is now, what is your thought on him?
Man, it is night and day. First of all, to your point of like almost you definitely feel grateful to be able to witness it. I feel grateful that we get to witness these two go head to head again, even though, like you said, it's not like they put up big numbers in the past when they've gone head to head, but you recognize the moment for what it is. And if you're like a true sports fan or you truly follow any, whether it's football or another sport, it's just like, man, I'm watching two of the greats who are both future Hall of Famers, right? And it's just like we get to witness it. And so from Lamar's point of view, and I'm sure Josh has his own kind of arc and story, but obviously from Lamar's point of view, where he's drafted number 32, and during the pre-draft process, you've got a Hall of Fame GM saying, "Oh, he should move to wide receiver," and then you got people saying he should be a running back, and this and that, and oh, he'll only last for 1 or 2 years because he'll get injured, and because he runs so much, and then so just to continue to see him say, okay, my sophomore year, I'm an MVP. And then in 2023, he's an MVP again, but in completely different styles. Like, yeah, he still runs, but it was all because of his evolution with his arm. And then last year, it just took another level. And so you do in some ways, and I know our fan bases do the same thing. They become very protective of these two quarterbacks, which is why they kind of go, head to head a little bit, or the arguments over MVP last year. Like you could see the passion from both fan bases because both become so protective. But I think for Lamar specifically, what is opening him up are two things that I don't think get enough. It doesn't get talked about enough nationally with Lamar's evolution. Number one, I think the change from offensive coordinator Greg Roman to Todd Monken has been massive. And so Lamar Jackson, every time the Ravens do lose a playoff game, the same old narrative comes out. But if you look at Lamar Jackson's numbers in the playoffs under Greg Roman and then his numbers in the playoffs against Todd Monken, they are night and day. I mean, there's like a 20% increase in passer rating. Like it's like the passing numbers are off the chart. Like it's just he's so much better. It's still these crazy turnovers though that are hurting him. And so that has to be fixed. But if you look at those two numbers, like the playoff stories really are different. You have 4 playoff games under each coordinator, and it's night and day if you look at the numbers. That's number one. Number two, I don't think that people give Lamar's competitive edge enough credit because Lamar tries to always he's such a nice guy. He always wants to like laugh. He's always at podium, like just smiling at reporters, even if they ask, ridiculous questions or pointed questions or whatever. He's so nice. And so people I don't think they quite understand like how smart he is, how he applies it, and how he is determined to evolve. And so part of it is because I don't want to credit Todd Monken too much and say, oh, he's the reason why Lamar's throwing better. I think that Todd Monken just got out of his way, whereas Greg Roman had kind of his own system of like running the ball first. Todd Monken was able to keep some of the running elements, and John Harbaugh were to keep those elements, but Todd Monken has empowered Lamar Jackson in ways that Greg Roman didn't. And so Lamar takes more control at the line of scrimmage, like most elite quarterbacks do, and is able to audible more than he could under Greg Roman. And so I think those pre-snap reads are helping him a lot. And so, so that's kind of the evolution I've seen, is more just that he's determined to evolve, but also that Todd Monken got out of the way and empowered him to do so. And I think that's why you've seen him win MVP in completely two different styles.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, if people who watch our channel know, while it was great for the Bills to see Josh Allen win the MVP, none of the three of us would have had any problem if Lamar won it last year. And I thought maybe you could have flipped it the year before. Like they're both great. Sometimes it gets into this narrative thing, but they're both worthy top 5 basically every year that they're playing. And it's fun to see them. But you mentioned run first. And so you go out last year and you bring in Derrick Henry. And there's people going, he's getting a little older. He's this, that, and the other. He didn't look it. He doesn't look it now. I don't know where that cliff is, but I don't think he's close to it yet.
What's crazy, this doesn't get enough play nationally either. I think Mina Kimes is one of the few that's pointed it out. Derrick Henry had a career last year in terms of yards per carry.
Yeah, 5.9. It's insane.
It's insane. And he probably could have had a career year in terms of overall yards last year, but the Ravens, I think, managed to his snaps early, and I don't even know if it was necessary. I think maybe they did it because they were thinking, oh, he's 30 and we need to save him for the end of the season. But listen, part of that is because of Derrick Henry himself. Like, look, he's a future Hall of Famer himself. He's likely going to be in the top 10 by the end of this season in terms of all-time career rushing yards. He is one of the most serious players on the team. He is locked in 24/7. His regimen of eating is off the charts. I don't know how anybody has that level of self-mastery. Like there's no cheating whatsoever. His workouts are insane. Teammates talk about it all the time, trying to keep up with him. So part of him having a career year is just because it's Derrick Henry. The other part is it does put defenses in a bind when you have Lamar Jackson and Derrick there. The Ravens are typically the number one rushing team each year, and it doesn't matter what running back has been next to him, whether it was earlier Mark Ingram or J.K. Dobbins or Gus Edwards, or maybe if they've been injured and there's been like a number 3 running back there, Justice Hill or Derrick Henry. And so that has always been the same. And so I think a game for us, it was Ravens Steelers, that the Ravens, who's our division rivals and should know us the best, they could not figure out the Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry mesh point and who was getting the ball and TJ Watt himself just looked so utterly confused. And so, yeah, I think the duo of those two is obviously off the charts. And if you are somehow able to stop those two, that's where the Ravens want to take it to the next level and then be able to beat people better in the passing game. And Lamar obviously is more capable, as I just pointed out in the last answer, of doing that than in the past.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at the regular season game when Ravens get the ball deep in their own territory, and in a flash, this monster of a player, like you talk about how good a shape he is. We'll be in the tunnel sometimes when the players are coming out, and obviously these are NFL players, and you see them. Derrick Henry's just different. And nobody that big should be that fast and that much in control. And he set a tone in that game. I mean, there was no question. The Bills were on their heels from the moment he did it. And you think about Derrick Henry powering people, making a run, but to take it to the house, what was it, 87 yards to begin the game, I think sent a message that whole game the Bills were never able to get back in it. And it feels almost like if the Ravens need to, he can just be the guy. But obviously, having that threat of Lamar, the Bills will talk about it all week. And they've done pretty well, except for that game, trying to maintain it a little bit. I personally thought in the playoff game, and you mentioned it before, maybe in that Chiefs game, but even in that game, I would have thought Henry would have gotten the ball even more in that second half of the game, and he did not, because I think he's that kind of a weapon. And I wonder if, even especially what we're going to see Sunday night, if they don't see a heavy dose of Derrick Henry early.
I just don't know why you wouldn't try to control the game with that early. Don't take yourself out of that, which is what they did against the Chiefs in that AFC Championship game. Like, force another team to stop that, and to play off of that. And then just to add to it, because obviously Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry, but the Ravens last year had Justice Hill, coming in as a change-up back. But now the Ravens are getting back their undrafted rookie sensation from 2 years in Keaton Mitchell, who is lightning fast. He was injured at the end of 2023 before that Chiefs kind of playoff run, and then they lost in that game. John Harbaugh, it sounds like, told Louis Riddick kind of not off the record, but off the camera, that he felt like they may have been able to win that Super Bowl had Keaton Mitchell been there, because he's such a change of pace from Derrick. And I mean, he can hit that edge and nobody's catching him. And so now, as good as the run game was last year, and as good as number 2 running back Justice Hill is, especially on third downs, like, he protects Lamar the best against blitzes and whatnot. But now that Todd Monken wants to find a way to get Keaton Mitchell in there and maybe have some interesting formations with more than one running back out there, because I'm just curious. I'm very curious to see them against the Bills and how much they could bring out Keaton to play off of Derrick and Lamar, because to try to have to stop a bruiser like Derrick, and then all of a sudden lightning fast, and he's come back from his injury, and they wear those GPS trackers. Keaton Mitchell's faster than he was before his injury. Like, that's how well he's come back. So I just want to put his name in your mind, and see if potentially he can make an impact also.
Yeah, well, the Ravens already put the Bills in a different spot because, their base defense is basically Taron Johnson in the nickel. Like, that's what they play. Yet when they play the Ravens, and they did last year, they'll put Dorian Williams, the third linebacker, out there. And the Bills D line is very inexperienced up front in the middle. Like, they've got not Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver, but they got two rookies behind them. They just lost Dwayne Carter. They're kind of thin at that spot. They are going to need, I think, bigger bodies out there no matter what. And that might open even more up for the passing game if the Bills try to play it that way. I did want to talk about the passing game a little bit. And I look at Zay Flowers and what he brings to the team. And his numbers went up in his 2 years, but he has been very consistent, made that jump. I think if I looked at it correctly, about 3 yards a catch of a bump. Is there a belief there that he can keep in these incremental jumps? Or, it's good numbers. He's very valuable player to this team. Where do you think his ceiling is as a pass catcher for Lamar?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's tough because the Ravens have so many weapons. Zay Flowers, this is crazy to say, but Zay Flowers is the first wide receiver for the Ravens to ever make a Pro Bowl. So you better believe that Baltimore was celebrating that, and they just see this as maybe, a page turning moment in franchise history, knowing that he was the first guy to do that. Yeah, I could see small increments of him growing. The problem is that he's not the only guy. And so obviously the Ravens are still a run first team with Lamar and Derek. But then in the passing game, in addition to Zay Flowers, you have Mark Andrews, you have Isaiah Likely, who I don't know if he's going to be ready, which is too bad because I do think he's going to be supplanting, or he could supplant Mark Andrews, which is crazy to say because he's an all-pro tight end. But Isaiah Likely, whenever he does get back, I mean, he and Lamar have such a connection, and so does he and Mark. But you've got Isaiah Likely. You've already got two tight ends who would probably be tight end one if they went to any other team. Maybe not any, but maybe 29 other teams. Then, in addition to Zay Flowers, the Ravens also have a drafted receiver, Rashad Bateman, who's their ex, who also started to come on last year. And he was always supposed to be, he was supposed to be ahead of Zay in kind of turning the page for the Ravens at the wide receiver position, but he dealt with so many injuries the first 2 years. And so he's a great complement to Zay, and has become a pretty good deep threat. And then you've got DeAndre Hopkins thrown in there. And so there's a lot of weapons to feed. So it's hard to say that Zay Flowers, just because of the weapons, it's hard to say Zay Flowers is going to take a big jump. Although I do still see him around that 1,000-yard mark, and he can do a little of everything. He can go deep. He can make people miss. He's a little jitterbug out there. They can throw it out to him on a screen. There's just so much you can do with him. So I'm not predicting a big jump for him just because of the many weapons that the Ravens could go to.
Yeah, Bateman finds the end zone, 9 touchdowns in the regular season. Hopkins is interesting. And I saw the first game when he played for the Chiefs and he got the 2 touchdowns. And I think it was Collinsworth was going crazy that this was going to be the thing. And then it never really seemed to take off. And I don't know if it just was, getting him acclimated more to playing there. What have you seen? Or, I mean, obviously it's tough to tell the way the preseason usually goes, but what have you seen and what should Bills fans be looking for on Sunday night from Hopkins?
I still see Hopkins. I think in Baltimore, we're seeing him as wide receiver 3. So obviously I don't think it's going to take off in a way that we're used to seeing from a name like DeAndre Hopkins. But he has had pretty quick chemistry with Lamar. We've seen a lot of highlights coming out of, practices and this and that, where it seems like it's been pretty instant. He's had a big impact on the young receivers in the wide receiver room. Like, he loves to mentor guys. He likes to help teach. He's a super positive influence. But I think on the field, the 2 places where, if I were like Bill's coaches that I'm really watching for him, it's obviously on third downs. It's like, because he can go up and get a 50-50 jump ball. It's so crazy to me because it really doesn't look like he's getting open and it doesn't matter. You just throw it to him anyway. And somehow he goes up and gets it. Like, that's what he's good at. That's his bread and butter. So I think if a first down is needed and you're like 3rd and 7, it's like, watch out for DeAndre Hopkins. And I also think in the red zone, right? Just he's that possession receiver that can help move the chains. I don't see a lot of volume out of him. I see him more being a guy that Lamar could trust in those moments that they need to convert.
Yeah, and Bills fans have seen D Hop go up and get it at the buzzer to beat them. They know all about him.
Yeah.
I know we could talk O line. I know Ronnie Stanley is the guy, and the line was good last year, and maybe can be better this year. But I want to go to defense because Sarah, I need to express to you my love for Kyle Hamilton. He is one of my favorite players in the NFL. We were out at the draft in Vegas when he was going to get picked in that first round. We got to talk to him, and I'm thinking, this is the kind of guy they need in Buffalo to go behind after Poyer and Hyde. And then the Ravens take him early, and you can't take a safety that early.
Mm.
You can take a safety if it's this guy that early, and now he just got paid. Tell me about watching this guy. In whatever place they put him, he seems to excel.
Man, you said you want to express your love for him. I mean,
Yeah.
I have love for him too. Everybody in Baltimore has love for him. Like how do you get like he's everything you could have dreamed of. The Ravens, I'm sure as Buffalo, especially since Josh Allen has been there, the Ravens don't get to pick in the top half of the draft very often. It's like extremely rare. And of course, it happened in a year after Lamar Jackson was injured. And so because of that, the Ravens, didn't go as far as they had hoped. And so, wow, we have the number 14 pick. And like you said, it's like really a safety, but the Ravens know something about great safeties. So I wasn't too worried. I gave them some grace for sure, knowing that they had Ed Reed before and they've had Eric Weddle in the house and all that kind of stuff. I feel like it's not like they've never missed on a safety, but I feel like they know safeties. And Kyle Hamilton, before his contract, his rookie contract is up, is already a 2-time All-Pro, and they signed him early. I mean, he could have been here another 2 years without a contract, but the Ravens don't do it like Jerry Jones, and they do try to play
Good for them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they do try to pay their big players earlier. They tried with Lamar too, but obviously that was quite the ride, the roller coaster ride. But Kyle Hamilton is everywhere. I mean, like you said, it's strong safety, it's free safety, it's nickel cornerback, it's linebacker. I believe he had a couple snaps at outside linebacker last year, according to PFF. Like he's everywhere. And then the Ravens defense was in shambles in the first 9 weeks of the season, maybe 10 weeks of the season. And the pass defense was just an absolute mess. And they ended up having to bench one of the players they paid out of free agency. And they benched like 2 of their safeties, and they wanted to be able to use Kyle Hamilton as the ultimate chess piece, but they ended up needing to put him back there. And then they found Ardarius Washington and just kind of had to put him back in the safety position more full time. And that was some other changes for sure solved the problem. And they went from being number 32 in most categories of pass defense to just from weeks 10 to 18, that they became number 1 in many categories. And if Kyle Hamilton wasn't so versatile, I don't know that they would have been able to do that. But they could have said, you know what? We need to play with different pieces. We don't have what we thought we had. So we're going to put Kyle here just because we have other guys that we think can move over here. So he gave the coaches flexibility to do that. And I mean interceptions, forced fumbles, tip balls at the line of scrimmage. I mean, you name it, he does it all. That contract that he got, now the new highest paid safety in NFL history, it couldn't have gone to a better guy, absolutely deserving. And I think he and Lamar are going to be leaders on each side of the ball for years to come.
And then you get Malachi Starks. Now, he's a guy that was mocked to the Bills by a lot of people, obviously a Georgia guy, and he can play, and you end up taking him. So now you've got the veteran, now because Hamilton's a veteran, right? And he's getting paid on his second contract, and you bring the kid in. How has he looked? And it appears to me that he's starting. Is he starting, or is what's the plan for starting?
Yeah, no, he's going to start from week 1. I don't know that would have been their plan, but Ardarius Washington, who was another guy that became one of the safeties towards the end of the year, he ripped his, I'm trying to remember, was it an Achilles or was a foot? I'm forgetting now, but in the foot area, he got injured during mini camp, or it wasn't even mini camp. It was during the workout period where you're not allowed on the fields yet. And so I think that's going to force the Ravens to put Malachi Starks in right away. I think he's ready for it, but the Ravens traditionally like to ease their guys in. I mean, just like Lamar Jackson, he didn't even start week 1. They don't like to throw guys into the fire. But Malachi Starks, as I'm sure you noted in your pre-draft studies, because he was mocked to the Bills, is he knows his film study. Ravens coaches and Eric DeCosta, our GM, said that he's as close to a coach as Ray Lewis was towards the end of his season, right? Like they've never seen it in a rookie. Like he just studies the film, and not in the same way as Kyle Hamilton, and he's still got a ways to go, but he's versatile too. And so I think second-year defensive coordinator Zach Orr is really excited to play with both of these guys, knowing that both of them can play interchangeably with lots of positions. So I'm actually interested myself because they didn't want to reveal it to us in the preseason, but I'm very interested to see how they use the two back there together.
Yeah, we've had conversations with Bobby Babich, the Bills defensive coordinator, and he basically says the idea of the strong safety and the free safety has kind of gone away. Like you need guys to be able to do both, and it's the key to trying to not give things away to the quarterback because they don't know who's going to play that deep third, who's going to come up in the box, and they can move them around. And having that versatility is obviously so important. Corner wise, Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins. I don't know about is Jair Alexander. We're recording this on Tuesday. I don't know if we know or have a good indication whether he can play in the game. What do you know about the corners?
So Jair has not practiced since August 9th. There's been a time where they had to kind of drain his knee. Obviously, he hurt it in January. I think the Ravens are going to be very cautious with him. John Harbaugh said last week, he's like, look, it's a long season. And I know Jair is chomping at the bit. We'll have an injury report on Wednesday. I could be wrong. I'm doubtful that he's going to play. I just don't see what the reason would be to rush him back. I mean, it would be nice to have him against the Buffalo Bills, but the Ravens have a lot of playoff teams that they have to play in the first 6 weeks. It starts with the Bills, but there's Kansas City in there, there's Detroit Lions in there, there's several playoff teams that we're gonna have to play early in the season. So, and the Ravens have some flexibility behind him. They also signed before they signed Jair, before he fell into their laps, kind of last minute. They had signed Chidobe Awuzie, and I know he's had his own injury history, but he'll be ready to go. So I think the Ravens can move forward with those three. Plus, they have a ton of depth beyond them. So I would guess Jair won't play, but we'll see on Wednesday to see if he somehow returns to practice.
And pass rush wise, the name I wanted to ask you about, because we've seen the Ravens have a decent pass rush. They got Mike Green, some red flags about him coming out. Has he shown anything so far? And does he have a role coming into week number 1?
He's definitely shown stuff. He definitely looks like a guy that people said he could have been drafted in the first round. He is everything I read about in scattering reports, but it's like it feels like more because it's different to read about it and then actually watch it. I mean, the way he would just bulldoze defenders trying to block him. He has an array of pass rush moves. He seems like a seasoned veteran with all the different moves that he has, whether he's bull rushing or he's spinning or like setting up. He's got so much quickness. There's a photo going around that is already super famous in Baltimore from the preseason where he's trying to get around a tackle and he does get around him, but it looks like he's almost breaking his own ankle because his foot is one angle and his calf is almost 90 degrees and his ankle is just, it's so flexible. Like, I just don't even know how I mean, listen, I think they're going to move forward. They're going to ease him in because they have Kyle Van Noy and Odafe Owe, who's going into a 5th-year contract year himself. So I think those two are going to be the leaders, which allows the Ravens to really just put Mike Green in the most advantageous positions. He's also been good against the run, Mike Green has. That was in the preseason. And of course, he's not playing against starters. But I think everything that he's been asked to do, he has done. And from the day that the pads went in on training camp, that was when, like, almost every day you hear about Mike Green. Every day, just every day. Because when he puts on the pads, that's when he becomes his best. So I'm eagerly anticipating to see what he could do against other starters. I've just seen him dominate the guys that he's been asked to play against so far.
Yeah, and obviously you've got Roquan Smith, and it feels like things flow from him. I'm trying to think of your young linebacker, Isaiah. Wait a minute, do I have it right? Who's your backup?
Trenton Simpson?
Well, Trent Simpson I know of, but I was an undrafted free agent
Oh, Jay
linebacker.
Higgins. Jay
Jay
Higgins. I'm
Higgins,
sorry, I
that's
missed the
the guy. Yeah,
undrafted
yeah.
part.
No, sorry, I
Yeah.
got it in my head. Yep. Is he a player active? Because I'm looking for other guys that all of a sudden you go, where did this guy come from? Is he a player that right now would be active on game day, or is he a player that we're bringing along slowly?
I think he'll be active more for special teams. I mean, the Ravens, this is crazy because the Ravens have a lot of carryover from last year, and they were obviously already the playoff team that you saw. But 11 of 12 starters are returning on offense. They have changed some things up on defense because of how bad the secondary was. But I thought this might be the year. The Ravens had 20 of the last 21 years they've kept an undrafted rookie. And we were coming into the season, all of like Baltimore media being like, man, it's going to be tough this year because the roster's stacked. And not just one made it, not two, but three undrafted guys made it. So I'm curious which one of those undrafted guys are going to be inactive, or is it going to be somebody else? So I don't know that I have an answer to that yet, because all those three undrafted rookies are going to have to show up in special teams.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious which ones are going to make it. But I will say this, looking at the film, yes, Trenton Simpson is going to win the job next to Roquan Smith, but the Ravens also used a 4th round draft pick on another linebacker, Teddy Buchanan. From what I see on film, I feel like Jay Higgins has already leapfrogged Teddy. And so last year, Trenton Simpson was named the starter, but then lost it a few weeks in. I feel like Jay Higgins would be the guy who's breathing down his neck because he was so good throughout training camp and the preseason. So we'll see. I don't see him on defense too much yet, and I'm curious which one of those undrafted guys is going to get, the most play on special teams.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I just read something about how that's the position, linebacker, that is probably people feel is scouted the least effectively. And that's why sometimes guys go undrafted. Well, the Bills have a guy, Joe Andreessen, who was a basically tryout guy, University of Buffalo. And he's right now, I guess you'd say, probably the backup middle, or at least an opportunity to play there, mostly on special teams. So linebacker is a spot you do see some undrafted guys getting their opportunity. And one last thing, I want to go to special teams. We're so used to your
Justin
kicker.
Tucker. Yep.
Yes. Tyler Loop, correct? That's the guy? Tell me about him.
That's the guy. The first kicker the Ravens have ever drafted. Justin Tucker wasn't even drafted. He's another guy that's done everything you can ask of him up to this point. He has a leg. He kicked a 61-yarder in the preseason, and it hit the back of the net when he made it. So he has definitely got a leg. I'd say he's not all the way up to as consistent as Justin was at his prime, but I think Tyler Loop can definitely be better than Justin Tucker was in 2024. Justin Tucker missed a lot of field goals, and I think those missed field goals lost some games for the Ravens. One being against the Eagles. Like he missed several field goals in that game. And so I think Tyler can be better than 2020, just to be specific, 2024 Justin Tucker, not Justin Tucker in his entire career.
Right?
Yes, yeah. But he was at about, I want to say 89% unofficially from what we saw in training camp and preseason, putting all of his field goal kicks together. Sometimes it feels like a little inconsistent. Sometimes he'd be wide left, sometimes he'd be wide right. But I will say this, he kept getting better. And when he did miss one, he was resilient and he'd come back and kick it. I'd say, once the Ravens let go of Justin Tucker, Baltimore Ravens fans were both relieved because they were upset and disturbed by the reports of what happened with him and the allegations there. But they were also nervous about how do you replace a Justin Tucker. And I'd say the fan base as a whole is feeling about as peaceful as you can on a football side because of how well Tyler Loop has looked in these preseason games and the reports out of training camp. So listen, we'll find out because he'll have the pressure. It's always like, I don't know, you don't know who a kicker is until he's got the pressure. So the pressure doesn't get much higher than in Buffalo against the team that beat you in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it's going to be at night and the nation's going to be watching. And I'm sure he's going to get an opportunity or two. And we'll find out what he's like when the pressure's on.
Yeah, and unlike the new stadium, which opens next year, where the wind's going to get cut down, whatever wind there is, he will feel it kicking in Orchard Park, even in September. Last thing I want to ask for is John Harbaugh. So you
Mhm.
got Sean McDermott with the Bills, who does not have that Super Bowl, does not have a championship, but he's got a length of time with a quarterback, an all-world quarterback, Lamar, Josh Allen. And there's pressure on Sean McDermott. Now, there's a part of the fan base that thinks something doesn't happen, Sean McDermott is gone. I don't think Sean McDermott's going anywhere. I mean, they've won a lot of games, 5 straight division titles, but there is a heat that goes on a coach when you have a quarterback like this. John Harbaugh is a made man in the NFL, is the way I would describe it. But we're talking about what, 2012 season when they
Mhm.
won,
Mhm.
and you've got Lamar.
Mhm.
Is there legitimate heat on John Harbaugh at all, or is he, because of the success he's had, a safe guy as far as a head coach of the Ravens?
Yeah, I'd say locally there's a lot of heat on him. I think a lot of fans, this is the nature of fan bases, like I don't want to say everybody, but there's a pretty significant chunk of fans that have been over John Harbaugh for a couple years now, especially since that AFC Championship loss, just because the Ravens, I just felt like the game plan was really poor. And because, like you said, there's Lamar Jackson, and so it's like, how are you, how do you take the head coach out of the equation when your team is not playing as well as it does during the regular season and the postseason? Like Lamar takes the most heat, but like it's not just Lamar. Like Mark Andrews or the defense or anything. It's so how do you take the coach out of that? But when I listen to people nationally, they're like, "Ah, he's great," all this and that. You know, I worked for the Ravens for 13 years. I did a full podcast. It's called Man of the Crowd. It was a 9-episode podcast just on the whole Harbaugh family. I interviewed both his parents. I interviewed Jim. I've interviewed GM Ozzie Newsome. But I sat down for about 45 minutes with Steve Bisciotti, who makes the ultimate decision over the coaches. He really likes John Harbaugh. At the same time, he wants to win. But
Yeah.
I think he has a lot of faith in John, and I think he's able to keep kind of a big picture uh, kind of a big picture look at everything. And I think that he feels like John is one of the biggest reasons that the Ravens are consistently good year in and year out. And so I think it would have to take something massive and easily blamed on John for Steve Bisciotti to say, "I'm done." And so I don't think his seat is as cool as, say, I don't know, Andy Reid,
Right.
but I also don't see it as super hot. I think it is in the fan base, but I'm not sure it is in Steve
Yeah.
Bisciotti's eyes.
Isn't it wild that you just say Andy, and both these guys got their starts with Andy, and he's the guy preventing them in total from getting past this point, right? It's
Right.
Andy Reid who gave him the spot with both Sean McDermott and John Harbaugh. And now there's Andy and Mahomes in the way again, which has kept the Ravens from the Super Bowl, has kept the Bills from the Super Bowl. It's kind of
Yep.
wild, isn't it?
It is pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Um, all right. We've seen these teams enough. Last thing for you, game plan wise, for the Ravens to win, obviously, starts with Lamar and Henry. Type of game you would expect. I mean, we always ask this, when we get a chance to talk to someone who knows the team so well, and sometimes they have to really come up with something. I know it's not that difficult to think of a way the Ravens can win the game, but what do you expect to see from them Sunday night to try to knock off the Bills in the opener?
This is so cliche, but they really need to win the turnover battle. And I can tell you that defensive coordinator Zach Orr every single day, because people focus on the turnovers on the offense, but the Ravens defense in all of Lamar Jackson's playoff games, I mean, there's been a ton of games. I think they've only had like 2 turnovers forced. And I was comparing that to the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs and the Bengals, and it's like night and day. Like the Ravens are so low on that, like the defense needing to get the ball back in their quarterback's hands. And so I know it's cliche, but what was the problem is they weren't themselves, and part of it was because of turnovers. So I think they're going to be very conscious of that on offense, and I think the defense is chomping at the bit to get one or more turnovers. They are on a mission every single day. Zach Orr brings up a film highlight of a past Ravens legend who has created a turnover, and he is just emphasizing that big time. But okay, to get more specific, I think the Ravens are going to try to control the ball on offense, I think it's going to like obviously control it early with the run game. Why wouldn't you with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson? I think they're going to try to be physical. I think they're going to try to just be what they have been, just try to be this black and blue, try to beat us that way. And then once you bring in your heavier package, or maybe you started that way, we're going to bring in our speed. So they do have that ability to do that. On defense, I'm actually really excited. There's so many new pieces on defense and in the secondary. Last year, the Ravens were number 1. They finished the season number 1 in rushing defense, and then they finished number 31 in passing defense. I'm hoping that they can like even that out. But I am curious myself, are the Ravens going to be as good in rushing defense, knowing that they lost Michael Pierce who's just their big nose tackle, and he retired. And so like they've got more athletic guys on the defensive line, which will be good in the pass game. I think they'll be able to put some pressure on Josh Allen from the interior of the defensive line. But I'm curious if like Buffalo could get some yards on the ground. Just because there's been some changes there. So, but I do expect them to come out and try to be physical, protect the ball, and get some turnovers on defense.
Yeah, no question. Turnovers is what the difference was in the playoff game. Sarah, let everybody know. Obviously, they got a chance to hear you here, where they can hear you. I know you guys do a lot of content on the Ravens Vault.
Yeah, so me and my co-host and business partner, Bobby Trossett, we do a live show every day at noon called The Vault. We had some Buffalo Bills fans in the chat today, so they always kept things colorful and lively. And then also I, obviously cover the Ravens on Twitter. I'm at SG Ellison.
Awesome. Sarah Ellison, great job. You gave us a lot of insight on what's going on in Baltimore. And we look forward to seeing what happens on Sunday. And who knows, with these two teams, maybe there's a matchup in January that we can get a chance to talk again.
Would not shock me at all, but it was a pleasure coming and talking with you, and I'll talk to you again on Friday.
All right, sounds good. Sarah Ellison from the Ravens Vault. Thank all of you for being with us. We hope you enjoyed this. We got a lot of content all week. We've got our live appearance coming up Thursday in Victor at the Thirsty Turtle. If you want to come out with Jenna, Dan, and myself, make sure you come out, talk a little Bills football. Season starts that night, and then we get set for Sunday night. That's going to do it for me. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you the next time on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel.